I'm Jim Owens, and you guys know, how many of you have heard me at the Hard Luncheon? I need to know. David, you did. Shane, you did good. If I tell the same jokes, would you please laugh this time as well? I've been doing this for probably 15 or 20 years. I've had the chance to come out and speak to groups of people and try to deliver a little inspiration, a little motivation, maybe make you laugh a little bit at the same time, because I think people learn better when they're relaxed and comfortable and whatnot. But I got to tell you, I'm a little uncomfortable here today, particularly because the last time I was here, whose truck did I back into? Was it somebody else? Chris? Yeah. So I'm an honest guy, and, but there was that one moment, well, it couldn't have been that bad. And I thought, but I got to get out and look at the truck, and so Chris took his truck to, hopefully the Woodland company truck. Okay. He took his truck to Woody Anderson, and as it turned out, I did more than just ding up a wheel. I bent a rim on his truck. I don't know how I did that. I have a backup camera. My wife calls it the old man package in the car, and I apparently didn't look at the old man camera. I didn't listen to the beeps going off in the car. I don't know what I was doing, but I managed to do probably between our two cars $8,500 worth of damage at less than 10 miles an hour. So that was my last visit here. I'm in the red Cadillac out front. If you'd all please back out away from my car before I leave, I'd appreciate it. And we'll try not to do any damage to anybody else's truck or car or anything like that. And mine is still under repair, so it'll be the one that's dinged up in the back if you can't identify it any other way. But what I've done over the years has been kind of fun, because what I get a chance to do is learn about people and learn a little bit about them. You're going to know a little bit more about me. First of all, I'll take some. I like to play Jim Jeopardy a little bit. So I'm going to give you a few answers to questions and see if you can guess. Give me the question, right? So let's start with 78.5 inches.
How tall you are?
There you go. Good deal. Good deal. What's your name?
Who, mine?
Yeah.
Bridge. I'm Brian.
Brian, and you answered the question properly? So you were the one that answered, or was it your partner? Yes. So, and what's your name again?
Brian.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure, Brian. Okay, well done, well done. The second answer is fine, and I'm curious if you know what the question is. I get this question all, pardon me?
How you doing?
No, I get this question all the time.
How's your hair?
How's my hair? Yeah, you got to pay $7.50 for this.
How's the day going?
How's the weather up there? I get that a lot, and it's fine. It's the same as it is down there. I just get it before you do. So that's another one. And then the last question is, the last answer is 31 years.
How long have you been married?
That's right. That's right. 31 years. So that's a good.
Wow.
All right. So yeah, and to the same woman, and mostly, you know, she is. In fact, my book is dedicated to the fact that I've been able to keep her, I guess, unaware for 33 years, and so we've been married for a long time, and we have two beautiful children who I only want to kill. Well, less often now than I used to. They're grown. So, but I want to also ask you a couple more questions. How many Auburn fans have I got here? Auburn fans? Alabama fans?
Oh,
great. Okay, I'll try to use small words and small slowly for you guys. You know, I don't know if you've heard about the two guys from the University of Alabama that graduated and they wanted to go into the building business, and so they went to the lumber supply company, and they one of them sat in the truck, and the other one said, you know, go get some 2x4s. And so he runs inside, and he's talking to the guy, and the guy in the truck's looking at him and trying to figure out what's going on. And he runs back out, and this guy goes, he says, what size? He says, 2x4s. So he runs back inside, and he says, he's talking to the guy, and you can see the hands moving back and forth. The guy comes running back out to the window. He says, he wants to know how long? How long? And the guy goes, a long time. We're building a house. Okay. That's the last time I'll tell that builder joke anyway. You know, you can work mileage out of a bad joke just as well as you can work mileage out of a good joke. I want to tell you one other thing quickly here. David, your story reminded me of a situation. Your wife's name is Carrie?
yes.
Well, you're in better shape than my Uncle Luke. Several years ago, and God bless him, he's passed away now, but probably 10 or 15 years ago, he had a very similar experience to yours. But he went into the doctor beforehand, and he went in with his wife and had to have some tests run. And Aunt Faye was talking to the doctor, and the doctor said, just Luke, go over there and get dressed, and I'll talk to Faye for a minute. And so he hitches up his pants, and he sees him talking very seriously. And he goes over and he asks her, he says, what's the deal? Give it to me straight, Doc. This has come before. He hadn't heard this part of the conversation. The doctor says, you know, Luke's very sick. He's very sick, but I think we can save him. If you will cook him 3 home-cooked meals every day, a very balanced diet, that'll be important. And she goes, I can do that. And the second thing you've got to do is you've got to make sure he doesn't have any labor around the house. He can't cut grass, he can't unload the dishwasher, he can't take out the trash, he's got to have a lot of rest. She goes, that's fine, not a problem. And about that time, he walks up and says, well, is there a third thing, Doc? What's the third thing she's asking before he gets over there? And he goes, well, you've got to have intimate relations with your husband every night until he's well. And Luke walks up about that time and looks at Faye and says, give it to me straight, what's the story? And she says, the doc says you're not going to make it. So that was better than the long time we're building a house, right? So what I get the chance to talk to you about today a little bit is trust as a foundation for teamwork and leadership. And I have a few notes here because you guys are kind of a beta group for this material, which beta comes from the Greek word guinea pig, by the way, so you're getting some of this material for the first time. My job is to talk, yours is to listen for the next 20 or 30 minutes, and I hope you don't get done before I do. If you do, just put your head down and I'll try. And I know it's getting warm in here, but if it gets too boring, just give me the nod or something, and I'll try to speed it up. So what's trust? Anybody give me an example? Tell me what trust is. Faith, okay. Now I'm going to suggest to you that faith is a little different than trust, but it's a good place to start.
Feeling safe with the person that you're
feeling safe, okay. What else?
Foundation of your relationship.
Okay. All right. So help me with a little bit more of that. What does that look like in practical terms? What does trust look like? What would you describe a person who is trustworthy as? What are some of the characteristics you'd see in that?
integrity.
Okay, so honesty, integrity, that's a good one. That's on my list, so you win a prize. So, what else?
Consistency.
That's another one. Have you seen my notes? Gina, you're in trouble. Gina's been picking at my notes. That's another one. Consistency. Predictability. That you're going to be the same way most of the time, even when you have a bad day. Even when it's the end of the month and Jeannie's trying to close out numbers and she can't get all the data from everybody that everybody wants and Mike wants to report. Because everybody knows that's predictable she's going to be. Right? That's a part of trust. What else?
Confidence.
Confidence? Yeah, and I think confidence in just the ability that people are in it for the same reasons that you're in it. I think it involves predictability, reliability, that you say you're going to do, that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. Right? Honesty that you talk about, and I don't mean like this kind of honesty. When your wife comes to you and says, baby, does this make me look fat? The answer is, baby, you look beautiful. It may not be, maybe it does, but that's not the kind of honesty we're talking about. We're talking about honesty that's motivated by the proper reason, to not hurt somebody. Right? To do the right thing for the right reasons. Now, you have to recognize the fact that if you are fair as well, you know, that if you are honest and fair and reliable and predictable, then I think that's the basis of trust. Because if I never know how you're going to react, then I'm a little nervous. And if I have to bring you bad news, then I'm not sure how you're going to react this time. If I take somebody's head off when they give me bad news, what's going to happen the next time they have bad news? Yeah. Yeah. And if we're both standing on a ledge trying to decide who's going to jump, I'm going to do a little hand in my back, right? And they're going to be up on there, 1, 2, 3, and they're going to push. Because one way or another, that lack of trust is going to impact your ability to be effective as a team. And you have to pay very careful attention to it, because trust is it's hard fought and hard won, but it's very easily destroyed, right? It only takes one time for somebody to blow up at you or somebody to not tell you the whole truth. And I've had situations in my business when if people don't tell me everything, and if I have to feel like I have to ask every conceivable question of an employee to get a good answer, to get all the answers, then I don't trust them. And as if I don't trust them, I start pointing. You know, and I start getting agitated. I start worrying about myself because I can't trust them. If you don't have this foundation, see, in business, most of the time what we focus on is results and accountability. And that's important. But I can tell this organization is a lot different because I got the privilege of sitting through this meeting, this training, in this time when there's a sense of camaraderie, there's a sense of concern for people who've been ill, for new folks. Manetta, welcome aboard. You know, you're obviously welcome here and excited about being here. So we got to focus on accountability and results. And if you'll think about a pyramid, I'm going to get you to think about a pyramid that I want to share with you. It's results is at the top, but the foundation is trust. And if we don't have trust, then we can't deal with conflict very well. We can't address conflict in a safe environment. And we can't then build mutual accountability, which is what we'd really like to have. Mike would not like to have to go check on you all the time, and I'm sure he doesn't, about every little thing you do. He'd like to just wake up and know they know their job, they know their role, and they do it well. And I can trust that. And then I can just take obstacles out of the way in the event something's going on that they need from me. Because that's really what a leader's role is. And you're all leaders, right? It's not a title. Leadership's not just a title. It's a role. It's what you do every day. And sometimes you're in charge, and sometimes you're not. And there's always a customer who's in charge of, you know, Mike's boss is his customer. It may be Melissa. I don't know. It may be as well. Is it?
Somewhat.
There we go. Good answer, Mike. Y'all ever had a fight?
Never.
Never? That you won? No, I think I may have told us. I had a fight with Stephanie last night, and you know, she came to me like she always does, begging me. She's on her hands and knees, begging me to please come out from the bed and quit hiding. So we've learned over the years that fighting is a natural part of a healthy relationship in many cases. So, but I think we have to recognize this consistency issue, this reliability issue. You have to look beyond just what is trust. I worked with a guy at one point whose name I will keep private because I think he's under investigation by the SEC now at this point. But he was very consistent. He would blow up almost all the time when I would come to him with information. And I'm not the kind of guy that shrinks from a challenge. I tend to, you know, I'm a big guy, I'm kind of loud, I don't mean to be scary, but he's pretty big too. And he was my boss, and I went to him one day and I said, I got to have an answer. You're the only guy that can decide this. I've given you this. It's been on your desk for 3 or 4 days. And he just kind of blew a gasket right out in front of everybody. I said, we need to go in your office, and you can yell at me in there. And he did. But by the time I got back to my office, 4 floors below, my phone was ringing. And I saw his name pop up on caller ID, and it was just like that every time. Man, I'm sorry. I knew I shouldn't have yelled. I got upset. You're not the problem. And so that was consistency, and it was honesty, and I can live with that. Now, if he hadn't called and just always treated me like he did on the 8th floor, the way I was, you know, up there, then I wouldn't have felt that sense of, well, I can trust this guy. And I trust him, and I walked through fire for him today. I won't go to jail for him, but apparently there's some issues around a little thing called Dodd-Frank, and the financial services industry has been involved in over the last few years, and so he's no longer in banking, nor will he ever be the rest of his career. So it's unfortunate. But I think that really and truly what the issue of trust as a foundation for teamwork and leadership is the golden rule, right? Do unto others before they do unto you, right? Are y'all listening? Y'all getting hot? Y'all need to stand you up and make you wake up a little bit? So really, do unto others as you have them do unto you. Because you want people to be honest with you, right? You want people to be nice to you. You want to be reliable. You want all those things that's really wrapped up in that simple golden rule. And if you can do that, I think people understand who you are. They know the truth. I work with dogs a lot, and dogs know who likes them. And they also know that whatever, if you're working with a dog and you're in a bad mood, it runs right down the leash when you're trying to teach a dog certain behaviors. So our behavior affects other people whether we recognize it or not. And most of the time we're so busy doing our thing that we don't think about the impact our behavior may be having on other people. and we don't think about doing that. Now, I had a recent experience with trust that is not for the squeamish. I'm going to tell y'all, I've been getting ready for this for a while. Y'all got to stand up. I'm looking at some sleepy people here, and I can tell you, it's not my fault. Take a deep breath. Raise your hands over your head. Say, "Hail, Jim." Okay, thank you. Hey, listen, I understand. So I had this recent experience with trust that gets into the reliability, the honesty, integrity thing. Now, I'm 6'7", I weigh 245 pounds, and I went to an MRI center the other night, which is really like being, hey, have you had an MRI before, right? It's like being in a trash can with somebody banging on it the whole time while you're in there. And my experience there was like this. First of all, I hadn't had a lot of experience, but I walked inside, lady took me in, she put me in a broom closet, basically, and said, "Take your pants off." And I said, "I beg your pardon?" She said, "I mean, what? I usually put on a gown." Okay, so I put on a gown. She goes, "And put on all the big ones, because they're longer." Now, longer is not, they're longer this way,
Yeah.
but long is like here on me. And I was wearing Florida Gators drawers, the color of Florida Gators blue, and I didn't know whether to pull them down or pull them up, or what to do with them. And then she said, "Now you don't have to take your socks off." And I said, "Well, what if I want to take my socks off?" "Don't take your socks off." So they want you in as awkward a position as you possibly can be. And no matter how big they are, they never tie in the back, right? So you're going down the hall doing this the whole time. And I'm starting to feel a little uneasy. So she puts me on the table, and she says, "Now, Mr. Owens, this is going to take about 30 or 40 minutes, and it's going to be, everything's fine. I need you to look at this release form. I need you to sign it. The dye that you get injected may make you nauseous. The dye that you have injected may make you dizzy. The dye that you have injected may make you get hives. The dye that you have injected may kill you." What? I said, how soon are we going to know if it's going to kill me, basically? And she goes, "We'll know right away." And I said, "Well, the bigger question, what are you prepared to do about it?" And she said, "Oh, don't worry." Now, this was supposed to be comforting. She said, "I've been doing this for a long time. I've only had 3 people ever have this happen." Now, I didn't want to hear that. I wanted her to just lie to me and tell me, "Oh, it never happens." But she did tell me she had a big needle somewhere with epinephrine in it that she could jab in me and make me feel better. And then, after she tells me that, she hands me this little tube. Looks like a little stress ball, right? She goes, "This is the panic button. I won't be able to hear you while you're in there. But if you need to get out, just squeeze the panic button." Now, I am completely uncomfortable at this point. And when they start to put me into this tube, my shoulders are this wide, the tube's this wide. And I'm buttoned up against the tube. And she goes, "You're going to have to do this, but it gets wider on the inside." And it does a little bit. But I get in the tube, and she goes, "Mr. Owens, you're sticking out at the top and the bottom." Because as long as I didn't feel a lot of trust in her and a lot of confidence. I'd never been through that with her before. So I didn't know if she was reliable. I didn't know. I mean, she was telling me the truth, I guess. You could die, but she wasn't doing it in a way that kind of made me like, "Okay, let's do this." It was more like, yeah, it could happen. I would have preferred to not have her be honest at that point, but I will give her points for honesty. So she was trustworthy in that regard. And if I ever go back, I'll know what to expect. I bet she's predictable. I bet the next person getting on the table was getting the same routine that I was getting. So that's just a little bit of a story to think about situations. When you're feeling uncomfortable, when you're feeling a little awkward, when you're feeling vulnerable, you got to make a mental decision to be honest and deal with that as the next step. Right? You have to be willing to deal openly and honestly with conflict and tension to really get to the next stage of accountability for the results that we're after. What are the consequences of a lack of trust? Let me give you a few names of things and see if you can kind of hook into this. What does this bring to mind? Don Siegelman. Jail. Okay. Enron. Remember Enron? Or how about Health South? Remember Health South? Yeah. And that brings another name to mind, right? Screwsheet, right? It's funny how we know the names of companies that fail and fail big because of integrity issues and trust issues. Who's the head of Amazon? Amazon is the most respected company in the country right now in terms of trust from consumers. And the reason for that is how many of you shop at Amazon? Any of you bought stuff? If the guy doesn't stop at my house 3 times a week, he thinks something's wrong. He thinks somebody's died at our house. Because we buy books there, we buy all kinds of different things. And the stuff always comes on time, and it's always exactly what I want. And if I want to send it back, it's very easy to do that. It's, you know, once you figure out Amazon Prime, it's like everything that comes is just easy. Apple. Who's the head of Apple Computer right now? You don't know. Who was it before? Who died recently? Steve Jobs. You'll know Jobs because he was such a legend and all that. But the guy who's the head, and I can't even think of his name right now, but Apple Computer, it's reliable, it's predictable, but is it the cheapest? Can you buy a PC computer for cheaper?
Oh, yeah.
Right. But there's a huge brand loyalty to Apple. Everything in my house now is Apple. And now I'm hooked. I can't, you know, it started with iTunes, and then it was an iPhone, and then it was an Apple computer. And so there's an enormous amount of brand loyalty, and people will pay more for the kind of service and predictability and reliability. It's why not everybody shops all the time at Walmart, right? I mean, sometimes you're looking for price, right? What do you guys sell?
We sell,
Yeah, what do you sell?
sell a product.
Okay? What differentiates your product from other people?
We sell service, customer service.
Okay? What's your name?
Kim.
Kimmy? Okay, that's right. Just so you know. Just want to make sure you know. So you sell service, you sell product, what else do you sell?
Quality.
Quality, and with quality, what else are you selling?
Trust.
Trust and confidence, right?
Integrity.
Integrity. I'm getting a good value. And I can assure you that Woodland Homes and Mike's name is very well respected in the community, particularly after what we've been through in the last 7 or 8 years. I mean, if you're in the car business, the home building business, the banking business, what else? Anything with discretionary income issues, you had a tough time. If you're still around, I mean, I'm only 28 years old, and you know, I look like I'm 53, but because of what the last 7 years have done. Anetta's like, he ain't 28 years old. She's over here. She's like, he is lying from his teeth. And I am. So yeah, when I know your name, you're in trouble. So that's and Jeannie, I know yours too, so I'm keeping my eye on you just in case you're. So you have to keep this in mind. So what else? Let's think about Congress for a second. What do you think about Congress? What do you think of? You trust Congress?
No.
No.
Do you trust your congressman?
No.
Okay. You know, that's changed dramatically in the last 25 years. It used to be nobody trusted Congress, but they thought their congressman was fabulous. And now it's like, there's still a whole lot of them. They're all bums. And I wouldn't be, and I'm not saying that they're bums, I'm just saying that's how culture perceives them. The banking business and the financial services industry used to be one of the most respected kind of apprenticeship professions in the, around. You were kind of up there with doctors and lawyers and Indian chiefs. And now financial services is the worst, and it's followed by banking in terms of trust by something called the Edelman Trust Barometer, which kind of looks at things around the world to see how people feel about media or government or business. And business has the highest level of trust to solve social problems and community problems above and beyond government. But it's only about 5 percentage points higher. And nobody thinks anybody's really good at it. So the trust in business is about 25% of the population thinks that business can solve problems. But only 20% people think government can solve problems. Right? It's actually 20 and 15. Because people think government can't do anything anymore except self-perpetuate their own problems. And it's all because we don't trust them. And they haven't proven themselves reliable and the other things that they need to do to be that way. What's going on in Ferguson, Missouri right now?
Unrest.
And why is there unrest?
No trust.
There's no trust. Who doesn't trust who?
Citizens don't trust the police officers.
Right. Now, that's probably not entirely fair, right? Because there's been 12 million, there have been 12 million arrests in the last year. No, in the last, I think it's the last year. 12 million arrests. There have been 400 police officers charged with wrongful shootings, and most of those guys have been acquitted. So yeah, there are crazy guys out there with guns carrying a badge. But for the most part, They're trustworthy, they're in it for the right reasons, and they're reliable. But this thing, and there's a lot of other things going on at first, and they're out there. But there's no foundational trust within the community. And therefore, there's no way to deal with conflict effectively. And therefore, accountability becomes a question, and guys like Al Sharpton and other people go to these communities, and they prey on that issue. And so in your organization, what you want to be able to do is trust somebody enough to deal openly with conflict, to feel safe. And then you want this sense of accountability, that it's not just Mike or Melissa's job or Shane's job to see how we're doing. We want to hold one another accountable. How much better is it if Monica and Netta can hold each other accountable to their own professional conduct and productivity and learn from each other, rather than if somebody has to intervene? When I have people in my organization that get into a fuss and a fight, I ask them, have you talked to the other person? And 99 times out of 100 they say, no, I haven't. Well, are you a grown-up? No. Apparently not. I want Daddy to solve it. It's like when my kids were little. You know? And I'd say, go in the room, you both get a stick, and keep beating at each other until somebody comes out bloody. That's not a little true. No, we never did that. We gave them bats. That's not on tape. I didn't mean that. So you have to think about these things and then say, well, what do I do if I want to build accountability from a 360-degree perspective? If I want to build trust, and if I want to focus on results, you have to do a couple of things. First thing you do, you've got to look in the mirror. You've got to do a little self-examination, a little reflection about, hey, am I walking the talk? There's a chapter in my book about leadership and walking the talk. And it's one thing for me to say to people, I want you to be empowered, I want you to go make decisions, but if I'm always second-guessing them, then they're not going to trust me. But if they even do something stupid sometime, and I have to pay a price for that, I look at that as an investment in that person. There's a story years ago about an American Express account officer who lost a $10 million account for American Express. And he walked into his boss's office and he said, I know you want this, so Mike, here's my resignation. And the guy took it, he slid it right back across the table and he said, this company just spent $10 million educating you. Why would I waste that money? And so that's a different kind of trust, right? When you're not always, in most organizations across the bigger you get, the harder it is to keep that family sense of accountability and mutual accountability to each other. But you have to do some self-assessment. You can use some group assessments, and you can do some things that help you actually model and see how good your trust level is with each other, and help you build on the foundation to get to results. Because the problem is, we flip the chart upside down. We flip the triangle upside down. And we focus on results first instead of focusing on trust first. And so we skip all this process and we treat symptoms in results rather than treat the causes. You know, my Aunt Faye looked at, she knew what the symptoms were, but the causes she wasn't willing to treat, right? She was not willing to treat, to my uncle to recover. He did not like recovery. So there's a lot to this that goes into it, other than just waking up every day and going in and saying, I'm just going to do my job today. I'm just going to do my thing. And you guys are getting in 20 or 30 minutes, and I don't even know how long I've been talking, but probably long enough. But you guys are getting what really is a 2 or 3 day exercise in very short order, some things that I will do with people from time to time. But it's imperative that you start with clarity about how to do the thing, how to introduce this whole issue, this concept. And every day you're dealing with this issue. How you answer the phone, how you reply to somebody internally. And by the way, I don't know how y'all deal with email, but I just ignore it most of the time, unless it's Jeannie. If it's Jeannie, I do. But if it's a customer, but internally, it drives me crazy. Pick up the phone and call them. Just call them. Can we be people and talk a little bit? Because there's so many things that can be confused if you don't have this dialogue with back and forth with people. I want to talk to you just a little bit about reputation, a little bit, and share this with you. I told you that I'm from, I think I told you I'm from a small community out in Walker County. My family's all from way out in the woods, dogs under the house, the whole hunting towards town, that kind of thing. Really small community. Literally a place called Coon Creek, Alabama. Population 500, yeehaw. It used to be famous for coal out that way. Now I think it's famous for coal and meth. I used to deer hunt out there, and I don't deer hunt anymore because I'm afraid that somebody will shoot back at this point. So, but I want to tell you this story about this reputation and how things are reported. I learned this about, there's actually 3 preachers from Walker County that were Baptist, Methodist, and Presbyterian, and a little small community, and there were 2 brothers in town named Rex and Galen Wingo. And Rex and Galen were horrible people. I mean, they were, from the time they were little, they were just hateful. Just mean to cats, mean to dogs, get older, steal, cheat, lie. And Galen died a few years ago, and Rex went to the Presbyterian minister and said, I want you to bury my brother. And it's a small community, and I want people to come, and I'll pay you $100 if you'll bury my brother. But you got to say he was a saint. And the Presbyterian minister said, I mean, he cheated on his wife, he gambled, he drank it. No, I can't do that. So he went to the Methodist minister and he said, look, my brother's died, and I want you to bury him, and I'll pay you $500 if you'll say he was a saint. And the Methodist minister said, no, I can't do that. He's been to jail. He's been accused of tax evasion. He's been caught with women other than his wife. I can't do that. So there's one minister left. He goes to the Baptist minister, and he says, look, my brother's died. I want to give him a Christian burial. I want to give him a Christian funeral. I want everybody to come. I'll pay you $1,000 to say he was a saint, and you bury him. And he goes, okay, I'll do it. Okay. So everybody in this little small community says, how in the world are we going to say that Galen Wingo was a saint? And everybody in town came to the funeral. All 700 of them, They all kind of line up. They're standing in the doorways going, now how in the world is this Baptist preacher going to say this man was a saint? So he gets up there and he says, Galen Wingo was a horrible man. He was terrible. He beat dogs. He cheated on his wife. He drank too much. He gambled. He was a horrible person. But compared to his brother Rex, he was a saint. You got to start with a self-inventory. Rex and Galen probably need to start with a self-inventory and figure out why nobody wanted to bury him and call him a saint. And I would say this, that doing and giving is very profitable. If you read a book, there's a book out called Give and Take. And givers are people who give of their time, energy, money, who want more altruistic returns in their relationships. They don't focus on the dollar. They don't focus on what they're going to get in a relationship. Because if you focus on what you're going to get, people are going to know it. Right? If you're pushing them to buy a house or to do something for your benefit, they're going to know it. And the math and the science on this is very powerful. If you look at medical school students in their early years, the givers do very poorly in school relative to the takers. These are the people that help you study. The givers that help you study, and they listen, and they're always there for other people, and they want to study in a group. And the takers are those people who are learning from those and kind of sycophantically living off of the other person's learning. But if you keep studying those people, you find out that as they get further into medical school, into their internships, the takers' grades fall markedly behind the givers' grades. That the givers over time, giving is a great strategy for a marathon. It's not a great strategy for a sprinter, but it is a weapon of choice for long-term performance. And it's founded in trust and paying attention to other people's needs far more than it is to pay your own. It doesn't mean you pay no attention to your own needs, because there's a bit of a social contract we all have to pay attention to. Right? Mike has a responsibility to make payroll for you guys. And that's part of the transaction. You've got a responsibility to sell homes at a price that he can make money so he can turn around and take it to the splash, what's it called?
Bash.
Splash bash.